But to the point. What's up, teammates? My topic of discussion today is about letting them struggle. Because school's going to be starting soon, and something we have to realize is that life tends to be a series of struggles, which are things that every person has to learn how to manage and how to deal with through life experience. So when you don't let your kids struggle, when you become the fixer that comes in and fixes it every time there's a problem, then that kid never learns how to solve problems on their own. Now, of course, there's some age-appropriate stuff that goes with this, depending on whether we're talking about a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 17-year-old, or even like a 24-year-old, right? There's going to be some age-appropriate differences in how this is done, but it's very important to me that I guide my kid in a way to help them learn how to solve problems rather than just giving them the answers, right? So why I'm bringing this up, we had a student come in a couple of weeks ago. Parents were concerned. This is a very young student, around the age of 4. Parents were concerned because this child had never really been given clear rules or boundaries in their life, so they didn't understand what rules were. Now, when they came into our class, they were pretty wild, and the way I understand it is they had trouble with this child being able to function appropriately in an age-appropriate group, right? So we worked with them for a couple weeks. We established clear-cut rules. We explained why those rules are needed, all of this stuff. And kid starts to get the idea and is doing pretty well, starting to do pretty well over a couple of weeks. But then they leave, and we are told that they expected our class to involve more unstructured playtime where they can do whatever they want, which kind of seems wild to me considering we are at martial arts and parkour classes, right? Like doing complete unstructured time for the 4-year-olds is not going to be conducive for what we teach. The other thing we got told, and this is the thing that sticks with me because it's not the first time I've been told this, is I just couldn't stand to sit on the side and watch my child struggle. But the thing is children need the proper amount of challenge. Children need the proper amount of struggle. And trust me, the struggle was was completely age appropriate for this situation. Super wild to watch a kid in activity and expect it to be unstructured, right? Like, I thought that was like the weirdest thing. I guess I can't say it's the weirdest thing because we've heard it many, many times over the years. But yeah, I thought the whole point was they wanted us to help get their child ready for daycare, ready for kindergarten, that kind of thing, ready to act right in an age-appropriate way in a place that they would need to be and not just completely go wild. And at first, they were pretty wild in here. It took like 3 instructors on with this child the whole time to redirect, to distract, to get them to accept and try to do challenges without just running away and being a disturbance to the other students and things like that. But after a couple of weeks, we had made some serious progress with this kid. But then getting told, oh, I expected this to be unstructured where the kids can do whatever they want, and I can't stand to sit here and watch my child struggle. I understand it's hard. I'm a parent too. It's hard to sit there and watch your child struggle. You don't want your child to have to struggle, but we also have to understand that it is through struggles where our character and problem-solving skills are forged. It is through struggles where our coping skills are forged, right? And of course, like I said, that struggle has to be age appropriate, right? But I wanted to talk about this with back to school coming back in again. It is our job to guide our children in how to solve their own problems, not in solving those problems for them. Now, I'm not saying you can never give them the answer. Sometimes it becomes necessary. But before you go giving them the answer to whatever it is they're struggling with, let them struggle for a few minutes. Then try to guide them to get the answer on their own. Try to ask the questions that's going to get them thinking in the right way. Or you can even ask pointed questions like, did you look up what that word means? If you're struggling with it, did you look up what that concept means? Try doing that before I give you the answer. Try doing that before I step in and fix it. Because ultimately, yes, sometimes we're going to have to step in and fix it as adults and as parents. But we have to let them struggle just a little bit first. Not to the point of tears, not to the point of tantrum, but struggle for 5 minutes and actually try. Then spend 5 minutes trying to guide them, right, to figuring out the answer on their own. And if they still can't do it, then right about that time they're starting to get super frustrated. Then we walk them through how to find the answer. We walk them through how to do it. Not give them the answer, walk them through how to find the answer. So next time they run into that kind of problem, they're going to know exactly what they need to do in order to, or what they're going to need to look at to solve that problem. See, like, my confidence as a young child didn't come from knowing things. My confidence as a young child came from the fact that I was put in a position, probably too young for my age, to have to solve problems on my own. So my confidence today isn't that I can that I have the answers to every problem I have. My confidence today is rooted in the fact that I know no matter what that problem is, I don't have to have the answers. I can figure it out. I can find the answers. I can come up with the answers. I can test the answers, and I can find the best answers for whatever it is that I'm dealing with. That's a big part of confidence in us as adults, is having that knowledge and understanding that we don't necessarily have the answer to our problems, but we know we can solve that problem. We know the process to solve that problem. And it's important to start instilling that in age-appropriate ways when kids are young, even as young as 4 and 5 years old, as long as it's something really easy and within something that's in their wheelhouse. Yes, Ms. Rose, it is hard to watch the kids struggle, but yeah, it's kind of the point of putting them in an activity like martial arts, like parkour, like gymnastics, like soccer, like basketball, like football. The point is for them to have a struggle, to run into struggles, to put in the work, to figure out how to solve those struggles, and then to feel the reward of personal achievement, personal victory at the end of that process, which might be a sports game they win. It might be that first tackle they get in a football game. It might be that first stopped goal or goal they get in a soccer game. Or it might be that first tournament they go to as a martial artist. Or it might be that first flip they learn as a parkour and acrobatics student, right? And that personal victory is a huge step in how kids earn self-esteem. I hear a lot of parents these days talk about how their kid struggles with self-esteem or confidence, and that's not unusual. It's been happening for a long, long time with our youth. But the way we help them with that is we give them a small struggle that we know they can solve. We guide them in solving it, and then let them celebrate and celebrate with them, and let them feel good about the fact that they got to the answer. They're mostly on their own, right? Confidence is earned. Confidence is not something you have. Confidence is earned. If you think confidence is just something you have, you're going to have to ask yourself if you're confusing confidence and arrogance. Because arrogant people assume they can do things that they can't. In the martial arts world, and even in the parkour and acrobatics world, we run into this all the stinking time. Oh, well, I could beat a trained fighter in a street fight because there's no rules. If you think for a second that trained fighter who fights competitively in full contact competitions do a rule set can't break the rules better than you can, you're lying to yourself. Oh, I could bite and scratch and eye gouge. Yeah, so can that trained fighter with no rules, and they're going to be able to do it better than you because they just understand the concepts better, right? So it's the same kind of thing when we're talking about kids. So coming into this back to school season, make sure that when your kid has a problem they run into and they want you to answer it, don't immediately give them the answer. Instead, give them a couple of minutes to struggle with it. Say, I want to give you 3 minutes to see if you can figure out on your own, and it's okay if you can't. Just want to give you 3 minutes to see if you can. Then at the end of that 3 minutes, okay, let me ask you some questions. Let me guide you to the process and see if you can figure out the process to solving this problem. Give them 5 minutes to do that. At the end of that 5 minutes, they're getting frustrated, still haven't figured it out, then don't just give them the answer, guide them through your process of solving it. Guide them through the process you would have done in order to get to the core of the answer of that question, right? It's very, very important for childhood development, not just for self-esteem, but for coping skills, for competence, right? These things are really, really important. Life is a struggle, and we all have to figure out how to handle it, right? And if you agree, pop it into the comments. Or if you're just listening along, I'd love to engage with you. Pop in the comments a type of video you'd like to see me make lately. I've been making a lot of videos for women, been making a lot of videos geared towards moms. I'd love to hear if you got any ideas of videos you'd like to see. I'll give you some of my ideas in a little bit when we're done with this discussion. But like I said, it's really just about giving guidance before answers, right? Don't become the fixer immediately. Don't become the fixer immediately. Instead, guide them. Guide them to the answers. Let them struggle a little bit. If you bring your kid into a sport, any sport, soccer, basketball, baseball, football, martial arts, parkour, gymnastics, dance. Doesn't even matter what it is. You've got to let them struggle with it, and then you've got to support them through it, because when they struggle with something, if they don't get it right off the bat, especially when they're below the age of 9 or 10, if they don't get it right off the bat, they'll get really dejected. They'll get really down on themselves, and they just need you to be supportive and be like, look, I know you're struggling with this right now. I know you weren't able to get it down today, but I also know you have the work ethic to keep at it and keep trying as hard as you can, and if you keep doing that, then give it a week, give it 3 weeks, give it a month. I bet you're going to get a lot better at this skill than you think you can right now, right? But yeah, sometimes that means we have to sit on the sidelines and watch him struggle. And if that's too hard for you, look, I remember taking my son to some activities when he was much younger, and it was hard for me to watch him struggle, and I wanted to jump out there. You know what I had to do? I had to walk outside. I had to walk outside because I knew watching him struggle and watching him navigate the relationship with the coach of the class was going to be important for his development and his confidence long term. I needed him to build his confidence at that time, and working with adults and working with conflicts with adults, conflicts with coaches, not understanding things, how to ask questions. And I really wanted, like, I knew what he meant. I really wanted to get out there and fix it. But I also knew that that was just going to hold him back, right? That was going to end up holding him back at the end. And in the end, I needed him to learn how to navigate his own personal situations on his own. And I'm still doing that to this day, right? My son does online school, technically, right? So, and he works here. So when he's up here, he does get to socialize some, but he also has to be ultra professional because, well, he works here. He's one of our instructors. And I know that one of the things I was always afraid he would struggle with is social situations, right? But I've been really happy to see how he's been able to evolve and handle social situations and handle meeting people his own age. Yes, sometimes online. I mean, that's just how the world is these days. Sometimes you meet these people online and then forge relationships with them, gaming relationships, relationships on the phone, navigating how to talk, navigating how to be himself, how to let go of his mask, navigating how to handle relationships with girls, boys, otherwise, right? Like, and I feel really good watching him able to navigate these things on his own, because those were big concerns to me when we chose the schooling method that we chose, is that he would struggle with those things as he grew. But I honestly, I'm really proud of him for where he's at right now. But it meant I had to watch him struggle quite a bit first, right? Now let's get to the second part of this conversation I wanted to have. I've been making a lot of videos lately. I've been having a lot of fun making content. But one of the biggest problems I've had in making video content over the years, and it's why when you go on my YouTube or my TikTok, you'll see 14,000 views, 1,000 views, 200 views, 50 views, 60 views, 100 views, 200 views, 300 views, 200 views, 50 views, 1,000 views, 5,000 views. And when you scroll down, you see all kinds of crap like that. I know one of the biggest reasons for that is I've always made content that I liked without really considering too much who the content was for. I made content for parents. I made content for teens. I made a lot of different content for a lot of different people. And, you know, I know that's why my views are the way they are, because I haven't been making consistent content for one demographic. And so for this past 3 to 4 weeks, I've started focusing on my favorite demographic to make content for. That's strong, independent women, strong, independent mothers, mother figures and things like that. And I've had a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys have seen, I know if you're on my YouTube, you haven't seen these yet because they haven't come out, but like one of my favorite videos I did recently was showed one of my instructors, a lady, getting now it was all a skit obviously, but getting hit on by another one of my teen boy instructors, and then her taking him down at the end. I think that was one of my favorites. I really love that video. Another one I made was ladies, if you're going to throw in the towel, do it the right way. That one involves Mrs. Rose kicking me in the face while I have a towel covering me. Really fun stuff. I've got some other ideas, you know, I'd like to make soon. One of them, I think this was one of my favorites, was a clipboard idea where a lady's writing on a clipboard with something strange, and either her son or a man comes up, you know, what are you doing? And she says, nothing. And then it shows a picture of the clipboard, and it's like plans to take over the world. Step 1, pretend you know what you're doing. Step 2, always kick them in the face. Step 3, take over the world, or something like that. And then flashing back to the man or the boy walking in and saying, should I be scared? And her saying, maybe, right? I think it's fun. I think one of my most fun ones, but one of the hardest ones to film, I haven't made it yet, is one I'm going to call Mom Magic, right? So this one would be like, woman walks on the screen, snaps her fingers, and a cup of coffee appears. She starts to drink it. Guy walks up, how did you do that? And she goes, oh, that's nothing, and points to a mess on the ground, snaps her fingers, mess is instantly cleaned up. And he's like, oh, that's a magic. And she winks at the camera, says it's woman's magic or lady's magic or mom's magic or something like that. I figured out what I wanted to say. And then the next scene is like a behind the scenes where she snaps her finger and the guy looks like he's hypnotized. She tells him to do something and then he goes and does it. And when she snaps her fingers back, he just wakes up and he's like, how did that get done, right? I think that would be an awesome video. But I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are, like different videos you'd like to see me make. If you're a woman in particular, if you're a mom, if you're a teenage girl, I'd love to see like what are some topics, what are some things you'd like to see me hit on. It could be serious or it could be funny. Doesn't matter. Whatever you'd like to see me do, right? As adults, as adults, we have to be able to communicate clearly and calmly to help our kiddos figure things out. Yeah, communication skills are important, and I understand that not all of us have great communication skills. I don't want to sound like I'm being arrogant about this. Communication skills was one of those things that kind of didn't come naturally to me at first, but then by the time I was 12, I figured it out, right? So I was a kid that always had my nose in a book, always reading, always spoke in proper grammar. I know you wouldn't believe it the way I talk now. Always spoke with proper grammar and stuff like that, but I never fit in. Never thought I was a weird kid. So by the time I was 11 or 12, I was sick of it. I wanted to fit in. And one of the very first things I did, which is actually a communication skill in its own right, is I started purposely messing up my grammar. I started purposefully talking the way I talk now, right? Because it's made people feel like more comfortable around me when I was talking in a way that they talked, right? Or spoke in a way that they spoke, maybe more proper about it. But that was my first kind of realization of different ways to use communication skills to form relationships or even fit in if you need to. Not that you should be trying to fit in, but it's part of it. The reason I feel like communication skills are some of my strongest though is because my mother I didn't realize it till much later. She used a lot of gaslighting tactics. She used a lot of negging towards me to constantly have me like second guessing and like 1 second thinking I'm smart and capable and the next second thinking I'm stupid or I'm manipulative or I'm greedy, which are things that she put on me a lot, right? And so to navigate that, I had to learn how to communicate clearly and effectively and navigate those situations. So one of the first things I had to learn was when someone is gaslighting you to stick to one topic. This was one that I didn't learn until I was about 10 or 11 years old. But the trick to dealing with gaslighting is they constantly want to reframe the topic or they constantly want to adjust the topic, and you have to keep don't let them do that to you. You have to keep coming back to the main topic. You have to keep coming back to the one thing that was at discussion here. The other thing, and I actually am glad my mom did this. The other thing my mom would do is she'd call it playing devil's advocate, but she would question everything. Every idea I had, every cool thing I did, if I was talking about some idea for a science project or an idea for a paper I was writing or something along those lines, I'd start to explain it, she would play the counter argument. She would basically like, oh, that's stupid. Well, you can't explain this. Well, how do you explain this? And most of it was illogical. Most of it was logical fallacies using circular reasoning and things like that because she didn't really understand, logical discussion very much. But it taught me how to handle someone throwing logical fallacies at me, and it taught me how to be very clear and about the ideas I had. And probably the number one communication skill that taught me was how to take something very complex and break it down into something very simple and easy to understand for someone who has no experience or knowledge related to the topic. And I never thought I'd be a teacher because when I was younger, I thought I wouldn't be good with kids, but I guess that's the reason that I kind of ended up falling into teaching and feeling like I was pretty good at it right off the bat. is I've always felt like you don't really understand a complex topic unless you can explain it to someone who knows nothing about it in a very simple way that they can understand. And so that was something I had to learn through my mom questioning everything I did, questioning everything I said, right? And I hated it as a kid, but it did build into a very valuable skill that I have as an adult, and it eventually led me, I wish I would have went to college for this, but I didn't like fully understand it until I was in college and took a Psych 101 class, and they spent a lot of the time talking about coping skills, but they also introduced us to influence psychology, and I was hooked, man, right off the bat. I was just like, you mean I could do one simple small thing and it changed the way a group around me feels or speaks on a topic? And it's true, right? Not necessarily online, because everything's text, but like some of the deals I get in with trolls online, I'll have that stuff happen face to face. And I always love it when it happens face to face because it takes me all of 10 seconds to get them backtracking and like trying to take back parts of what they said, or even agreeing with me on things that they never would have agreed with me on, simply because I'm able to break it down in a small, easy to understand way and put it in like metaphors and things like that in order to help it be understood. And I had to learn those coping skills early because of my mom. And so like it's just something I've used throughout my life to navigate relationships, to navigate difficult people, right? You can't usually do that too much in comments online, but when I deal with a troll comment online, I answer it as if I'm answering anyone else that reads it. So yeah, I know there was a couple I posted on Facebook today and on Instagram where I answered kind of mean to a couple of people who were being mean. And I'm sure there's some of you out here, well, you're a martial artist, you talk about courtesy and respect and all of these things, you should have been the bigger person. And I get that, I really, really do. And I could have answered with courtesy and respect, but some of these people have zero respect or zero courtesy. And respect to me is something that you have until you lose it, right? So if you come on my video saying something nasty about some teenage girl in the video or something like that, I'm going to check you. And what you have to remember is, of course, I could have been respectful and de-escalated, but I wasn't answering the comment to answer the commenter. I was answering the comment so that all the strong, independent, or even shy women or girls who are feeling like they're having a tough time would see me advocating for them, would see me fighting back against that type of negativity being brought towards women and girls, because I think it's important that I think it's important for all of us, regardless of gender, that we see that there are people out there who will advocate for us, that there are people out there who will stand up for us if they're in a position to do so or in a position of power to do so. So like there was this couple of like nasty comments we had about one of the girls in a video on TikTok recently, and I posted a lot of that on Facebook and Instagram, and you can see what those comments are, and you can see my answer. And some people messaged me, well, that's not a good representation of respect and de-escalation. No, it's not, because I wasn't trying to model respect and de-escalation. I was trying to model the person who is standing up for that shy girl who sees that comment and feels bad about themselves. I was trying to stand up for that. I was trying to advocate for them. And yeah, I dished it right back out. They said something sarcastic, how, I don't know, some girl was ugly or something. So I answered back. I was like, that's rich coming from somebody who looks like the love child between Gomer Pyle and Cosmo Kramer. And, I get that was mean, but at the same time, I wasn't commenting it to be mean to him. I was commenting it so the women and girls who come across that later can see that there are people out there who will stand up for them when these guys try to be negative towards them, when these guys try to ruin their self-esteem and ruin their confidence. Makes sense? So don't come at me with you should have been more respectful. I'll be respectful to people who are respectful. But if you come out the gate with something disrespectful, you've already lost my respect in our first interaction, and I'm not going to show it back, right? I am myself. I have my own opinions. Sometimes they're strong opinions. I do not have any issues standing my ground in a conversation. Now, a lot of times I won't counter somebody if I'm not going to have that argument with them. They're going to believe what they're going to believe. But I will counter a thing here and there and then just nod along, right? Sometimes if someone claps, you got to clap right back. That's right. I feel that way. Oh, Brandy, I didn't see your comment. I'm sorry. It's also important for that to be done respectfully in purpose of information or learning. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what we were... I see what you're replying to. for ideas to be questioned so that it can be strengthened or see the holes that need fixed. Yeah, I agree. And that's why I do like, and I always promote, like, it's cool if you want to leave us negative feedback if you're a student or something like that, because sometimes there's no truth to it, or sometimes it's like the reason that they don't like an idea or hate something we do is the exact reason why we do it, right? So there's always kind of that too. But obviously, yeah, it is important for some ideas to be questioned. What I was talking about earlier in the video is people not questioning it in good faith. You know what I mean? Like, if I have an idea and you have a counter idea or a reason that that idea might not work out, and you express it, and we have this conversation, we're having it in good faith, right? But what my mom would do would be use circular logic, circular reasoning to try to twist me up. She would use straw man arguments. She would argue stuff that correlation equals causation, which it doesn't, right? Things like that. And if you're using those things when ideas are being checked or questioned, then you're not doing it in good faith. And like, I know, Miss Brandy, I know I've had a couple of these conversations with your husband recently, and I want him to understand I am not mad at him. I was just making a point. I know he thought I was getting frustrated with him, but it wasn't about that. I was trying to question what he was saying in good faith by providing anecdotes and statistics and things for why I had a different opinion than he did, and I was expressing my own opinion. I know that he was afraid I was angry with him and felt like that I was just questioning everything and felt like I should be holding that to my own page. But he also said, same thing you're saying now, that we don't get better unless we have the discussions. And that's all I was trying to do, was have those discussions with him about how I disagree with his ideas, why I disagree with ideas, why his ideas could potentially turn into something that he would not like, right? And so I was questioning his ideas. I was trying to do so in good faith, right? But it is important to be questioned as long as that idea is being questioned in good faith. If the idea is simply being questioned because you want to prove somebody wrong without first considering if they're actually right or wrong, without critically thinking about whether they have a point or not, if your whole goal of questioning someone's idea is just to try to prove them wrong, even though you don't have the proof to prove them wrong, that's arguing in bad faith. If your whole point to how you argue is gaslighting or using logical fallacies, then you're not arguing in good faith. You're not questioning in good faith. Does that make sense? Because there's a difference between having a discussion and an argument or a debate in good faith and questioning someone repeatedly just to put them in circles, just to make them unsure of themselves. Does that make sense? These comments were in general, not towards you. He and I just discussed them frequently. Yeah. No, I didn't. Oh, I just realized. No, I didn't think you were talking about me or anything. I was just trying to use that as an example based on what you were saying. I agree. Ideas need to be questioned. Discussions need to be had. I'm just saying that I think it's important that both parties make sure it's being done in good faith. If I start to have a debate with somebody and the other person is not doing it in good faith, they're using personal attacks, they're using logical fallacies, they're using circular reasoning, they're just trying to be as confusing as possible and muddy the waters, then I don't see that as arguing in good faith, and I won't really engage. I'll make my point and then say, I'm not going to argue with somebody who's not going to argue in good faith, right? I didn't mean that your comments were directed at me or anything like that. I was just, what you said reminded me of I thought it was a great discussion that I'd had with your husband recently, or a couple of them, and it kind of reminded me of that. Now, in his case, that was, in my opinion, what we had, the back and forth we had, was an in good faith back and forth. Like, we could agree to disagree. We knew we were friends, but because I knew he was a friend, because I feel that way about him too, because I knew he was a friend, I wasn't scared to check his idea. I wasn't scared to be like, well, I see it different, and this is why I see it different. And I know he was worried that, I got a little upset with him or anything like that. I wasn't upset with him. In fact, the reason I was so blunt, the reason I was so to the point with him on it was because I see him as a friend, so I felt like he was somebody that I could have an honest conversation with. But no, I didn't think you were directing it at me at all. Different opinions, discuss them frequently. That's good. I mean, me and my wife have different opinions. Me and my son have different opinions on things. I mean, I'll say that one interesting thing about my family is that we do share a lot of very similar opinions, if not the same opinions on a lot of things. We are on the same page on a lot of things. I think that comes with spending so much time together and being into a lot of the same stuff and working the same job. We all do the same thing for a living and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if you, here's the thing, if I agree with every little thing another person has to say, if I agree with every opinion another person has, I don't know how to say this. I might truly love that person, but I'm going to get bored with that relationship. You know what I mean? Like it's our differences that make us interesting, and being able to discuss those differences and trade those ideas are where we learn and grow. Because we'll either learn how to strengthen our own position, or we'll learn how to question our position, which could lead us to strengthening our position. We can learn how to respectfully disagree with another person's position and try to be influential to potentially get them to think differently about their position. And we can even hit the point where someone makes a great point and we think about it and change our position altogether, right? That's how we learn and grow. And I think I did a post about this recently. If you still think the same way you did 10 years ago, if you're still doing the same things you were doing 10 years ago, if you still have the same opinions about the same topics as you did 10 years ago, I mean, sometimes you really have to ask yourself, if you've been doing a good job learning and growing, have you been bringing in new information? And I'm not saying you haven't if you have the same ideas as 10 years ago, but I think it's always important if we get to that point that we have to ask ourselves that question. Like, do I have the same opinion, but because I have learned more and more information that strengthens my position, or do I have the same opinion just because I've made it part of my identity at this point and refuse to learn and grow with new information, right? I'm not saying it's wrong to have the same ideas you had 10 years ago. I'm just saying if you do still have those same ideas, if you do still have those same opinions as you had 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, it's time to spend a couple of weeks questioning it. I'm not saying change your mind. I'm saying questioning your own ideas. I've always been of the opinion that if you cannot make a great counter argument to your own opinion, then you haven't really thought critically enough to form a good opinion for yourself. Every strong opinion I have, I know the argument for the other side. I know the best argument for the other side. I could literally argue both sides, but because of that, that's why I have the opinion that I have, because I understand the best arguments from both sides, and it allows me to choose the one that seems like it's going to have the better outcome, that resonates with my character, with the things that are important to me, with my values, right? And so when I have a strong opinion, I have that strong opinion for a multitude of reasons, and I've questioned that opinion. I've thought hard about why I have that opinion, right? And I find that to be kind of important. But no, just trust me, Brandy, and you can let him know. I love your husband. I think he's a great dude. I highly respect him, and honestly, that's one of the reasons I had those discussions with him. You know, but I've left him alone since then. I don't want to bother him anymore. But I've been at this for half an hour, y'all. I still got classes to plan for the night. So till I see you guys again, be the best teammates you can be. Be the best at being you.